PEP Radio is a part of the Pennsylvania Equality Project that plays music, news, and weather, actively advocating for the LGBTQ+ and disabled since 2024.
PEP Radio, available on Live 365, Roku, Alexa, and at paequality.com.
Here at Gay SA Radio, we're very happy to welcome the Othering podcast to our airwaves. Catch the show every Thursday at noon CAT, bringing fresh voices and compelling conversations straight to you.
Head over to gsaradio.stream to find out how you can tune in and become part of our family. Don't miss it, only on Gay SA Radio, where you are family.
One man and one woman join forces to rid the world
What are you doing?
of inequality and fascism.
Seriously?
I'm trying I'm trying to do a promo here.
For whom? What are you doing?
Welcome to the Othering Podcast with Mike and Dory. All right, today we are talking to Anita. Anita is a 27-year-old disabled woman. She lives in England, and she advocates and educates through her social media profiles. After her late diagnosis with long COVID, she has found herself feeling alone and overwhelmed by her new diagnosis, and now works to make sure others with her condition have the appropriate resources and support they need. Welcome, Anita.
Welcome. Yes.
Thank you for having me.
And I feel like that's very important with long COVID, because a lot of people with COVID and long COVID and thinking about COVID want to not believe it.
Yeah, that is so true. I think it's still such a new diagnosis, even, 5 years on, that there's so many people who don't fully understand what it is, or even if they have a small understanding, it affects everybody in such different ways, to the point where even now people will tell me how they get their symptoms, and I think, oh my goodness, that is a new one. I've never heard that before. And it's something that needs to have a lot more awareness, because there's so many conspiracies and there's so much misinformation out there that I feel it's very important that somebody with lived experience actually gets the word out there.
Yeah, because, and you hit the nail on the head with the conspiracies, it being somebody ate a bat, or, and, it mutated that way, or all of a sudden somebody got hit in the head with some, a piece of wood, and voila, there's COVID. And it's just like ridiculous things.
Absolutely. I mean, I've noticed now, as somebody I've been doing this since about June, July, and every time that my content reaches outside of what I call my bubble, outside of the main people that follow me and listen to me, instantly I will get hate comments. And we're not talking one or two, we're talking hundreds upon hundreds. And it's a case of people who genuinely do not understand the condition. And that's the way I have to think about it, is, well, you're only saying this because you don't have the level of knowledge that I do. You've never lived it, you don't have to go through it. But unfortunately, there are people out there who've sadly listened to misinformation that's been out there, and they take that as the truth. And there's some people that, again, unfortunately, you're not going to change their minds on these things. No. They have their truth, and they're never going to move away from it. So I try and focus more on the people who are willing to listen, who are willing to learn, because there's more people out there. It's just, sadly, the other group tend to be a lot more vocal.
Yes, exactly.
And they're much harder to ignore.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't even understand that. Okay, so you want to believe the conspiracy theories, and that's up to you if you want to believe it. But why do you feel the need to come on somebody else's page and then tell them, oh, you're wrong?
Yeah, it happens a lot. And when it happens to me directly, I don't hugely mind, because at the end of the day, I don't know these people. And I'm thinking, would I speak to you? Would I hang out with you day to day? The answer is no. So I don't really care what your opinion is. But when it's somebody that that is very hurtful. There's definitely been a couple of cases where, you know, people that I thought I was good friends with, I'll then see that they share something on Facebook or they've posted something on your social media, and you suddenly have that realization of, oh, you are not the person that I thought you were. And also when it's to do with other people. So, for example, I'm doing a charity walk for a charity called Long COVID Kids, and I'm raising money for children with the same condition I have. And when people attack things to do with that, that bothers me, because obviously the parents of those children are going to read these comments. The children themselves are being impacted. It's not just about me anymore. And that's when it starts to get unacceptable in my eyes.
Very unacceptable. That angers me when people decide that they have to, you know, attack children, and, you know, it's real.
I don't see why you can't just keep it to yourself.
Yes.
You know, if you ultimately disagree with what I'm saying, just move on. Just move on to somebody else, you know?
Yes. You are allowed to disagree with people. You're allowed to have your own truths and, you know, lived experiences, and they're not going to be the same as everyone else's because you're unique. But if you're wrong, you don't need to spread it because you're just wrong.
And this is true. I mean, I'm so lucky. I'm in my it's been 3.5 years, and I'm now at a point where I no longer feel that, I suppose, connected is the word I'd use. It no longer feels so personal anymore. But if somebody had said some of the things that has been said to me, you know, 2 years ago, I would have crumbled. It would have destroyed me. And I know that there's going to be people out there who are looking at my page, looking at these comments, who are in that period. And, you know, these people shouldn't have to face abuse because of their diagnosis, because it's, even now, I still feel really anxious when I have to say to someone, because they see the walking stick and naturally the first question is, oh, what happened? What's wrong with you? And first of all, you are under no obligation to answer that. But I do tend to answer it anyway. And having to say to people, oh, it's long COVID, you have that tension in your body of, oh God, how are they going to take this? Are they going to, you know, are they going to launch into a conspiracy? Are they going to ask me about the vaccines? Are they going to tell me that it's not real? And I feel like that is something that, while it definitely applies to other chronic illnesses and disabilities, I think it's such a very specific thing for long COVID. It's like the most controversial disease out there, it feels like sometimes.
It does feel like that. And I also don't understand, like, if somebody has cancer, people nowadays are just like, oh, that's awful, I'm so sorry. And, you know, various other diseases, hepatitis or anything like that, people are like, I'm so sorry. Even if they don't understand how it came to be or what it is. Why can't people do the same with COVID and long COVID? Why can't you just say, I'm sorry, and move on? And, you know, why does it have to be so controversial? It doesn't make any sense to me. People died from COVID. That is true. And if you don't like that, that's on you. You know, it's not going to change the fact that people died from COVID. People get horrible illnesses from COVID.
Exactly. And thank you for using the present tense there, because you're absolutely right. COVID is still here. It's not going away, and people are still feeling the effects of it. But again, to a lot of people, I feel like it was something that happened in 2020 and it's done now. And that's not the case at all. We're slightly better equipped to deal with it now, but it's still very much there. It's still a problem. That's exactly, sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
But I was going to say that's exactly what my account is about. It's the fact that I've seen this now firsthand since 2020. I've seen how people react to COVID, the very strong reactions they have to things like long COVID. And basically, I'm out here fighting for those of us who do have it and trying to be as loud as the voices of those who are uneducated.
Yeah, and that's the key there, is that it seems that they don't want to be educated.
That is very true, unfortunately.
And because, you know, it's hard to be educated on every single disease that's possible out there. There's at least 17,000 just rare diseases alone, and if not more. So, it's hard to understand everything, how everything happens and when it happens.
But the thing is, that's when you should be educating yourself.
Yes.
Like, especially since I've started this journey online, so many people have different illnesses that, frankly, before I made my Instagram, I had never heard of. I had no idea what it was. And so you become educated, you watch their content, you ask questions, you research it yourself.
Right.
You don't just stick to your truth and never adapt from that.
You miss out on so many beautiful things when you kind of just stick to your own truths and don't branch out. And it's not to say that COVID is beautiful or anything like that, but the people are. So you're missing out on friendships and absolutely wonderful people who have these long-term horrible illnesses that stem from COVID. And, there are new diagnoses of COVID constantly happening. It's not one and done. Oh, we're good kind of thing.
Exactly. And I found that as well, how you said it can be a beautiful thing. One thing that I've often said, I think I'm a better person now. Since I've had COVID and since I've had long COVID, I've become a better person, because there's so much to do with accessibility, disability needs, chronic illness that you don't unfortunately consider until it happens to you.
Right.
Because you've never had to consider it. You might think that you're a very good ally, but when you're not living it, it's very hard to think about it consistently. But once you are, you'll start to notice really little things like, hey, this pavement's really uneven, the sidewalk's really, really bumpy. I didn't notice that before. And, there's not many places that are accessible in my town. Never realized that before because I didn't need them. And I think I've definitely become more aware. I've become a kinder person. And obviously, I'm not saying that me having long COVID is a good thing, but like you said, there are definitely things that have come out of it that people can experience and people can learn from that unfortunately some people aren't taking into account.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I'm glad that we all have the ailments that we have, the diseases, syndromes, whatever you call them, because I've gotten to meet so many wonderful people. And I don't like the fact that we're all sick and in pain, but I wouldn't have met such wonderful people if it wasn't for my having, the CRPS that I have. And so it's kind of an amazing community to be a part of, in my opinion.
It is.
And I think that there is beauty that we can find in our diseases and syndromes and, whatever term they decide to put with it. And we need to also us in the disabled community and chronically ill have to kind of find that silver lining so that we understand that we're worthy of still being here.
Absolutely.
Because too many people are trying to unalive themselves, and it's not worth it. You're loved, you are wonderful, you're special, and yes, it does get hard to keep fighting day in and day out on, like you said, where you realize the sidewalk is too bumpy, or wow, these steps are ridiculously, too high. They're not even good for a normal person, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think it's very hard in the current times that we're in, because both in America and the UK, disability rights and politicians are making very, very interesting, shall we say, decisions when it comes to disability rights. And especially in the UK, we have PIP, which is I can't remember what it stands for, but it's basically your disability benefit. You receive money to live to accommodate for the things that you need as a disabled person. It was already a program that was so hard to get into as it was. The UK government has decided they're going to make it 10 times harder. There's so many of us in the UK that do not have access to this money. We don't have access to this benefit. And there are thousands upon thousands of people who are no longer going to be eligible because the UK government is changing the rules. And it's infuriating that all we're trying to do is live a normal life. That is all any of us are after. We're just trying to live day to day. We're not after anything special, ultimately. We just want to be able to have the same quality of life as a non-disabled person would have. That's it.
And that angers me beyond belief, the fact that both, the regime here, Orange Cheeto, and the issues over there in the UK, I don't understand. Everybody, depending upon the type of government you have, or just if you live long enough, or you're born with it. You don't have an option. You will become disabled. Somebody will decide that you are either, they'll decide that you are disabled or you will become disabled.
It's the one minority group that you are almost guaranteed to become a part of
Right.
at some point in your life. And yet it's not taken very seriously.
No, and it should be, because as we live longer, my son just told me earlier that the oldest person alive today is 116 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And at some point, though, within that 116 years that person lived, they probably had a moment of disability. Everybody has, whether it's temporary or permanent.
Like at 115 years old?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty guaranteed at that point.
Some of them are lucid. I was trying to be fair. But everybody just wants to have a dignified life.
Yes, absolutely. And I do think that's something else that needs to be awareness brought to it, because how you said everybody almost definitely will become disabled. There are so many things that even my friends will say, oh, well, this has happened and I have this, but it's not a disability. And I'm like, no, it is. If it is disabling to you, if it's causing you a great deal of difficulty in your mobility, in your mental capacity, in anything like that, then no, it's a disability.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's not a disability.
But it is, because when it affects your mental health, or it affects your ability to think, if it affects your ability to move, if it affects any aspect of your life to the point of where you have to take a break or rearrange something in your life, it's a disability.
Exactly.
I guess my thought was, or my feelings are, when it's something so little, it puts down the people that have a real like a real severe disability. I don't know.
But
I feel like I'm putting it down.
I do completely
Yes.
understand where you're coming from, but there's no hierarchy when
Right.
it comes to disability. You either are or you aren't, in my view. And at the end of the day, I mean, I have no issue with somebody using the term disabled, whether it be physical health, mental health, anything. If you are finding it disabling,
It's
you are
disabling,
disabled.
Yeah.
And-
We don't get a special badge. We don't get a prescription with the big letters on saying disabled.
Yeah.
You have to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah, you don't have to go to a doctor and say, can I have the disabled badge? And then stick it on your chest like the big S for Superman or something. It's not like that. And I get it, though. I mean, I had troubles kind of admitting to myself that I was disabled, because
And so did I.
and it's such a stigmatized term. If once you start to say that you're disabled, then companies and other people start treating you differently. And they pity you because, well, that's just sucks that you can't do this anymore or this anymore. And it's just like, well, I wasn't thinking about that. Thanks, asshole. And
Can I tell you a secret though? I do kind of secretly enjoy that when they give me pity. I'm like, yes, tell me.
Yes.
how
And-
sorry you are.
it does
Yep.
kind of feel good, because it's a nice attention to know that people notice the fact that you're hurting. And
Yeah.
so there is that niceness about it. But at the same time, you don't want overly pity where, they just
No,
kind of act
right.
like you're all of a sudden you've downgraded back to toddler age.
Yes, and that is something that is very bad. The infantilization of disabled people is very, very strong, and it's something that sometimes even I have to work on, because I think so many people treat you as the child. It's very easy to slip into that role yourself of, oh, well, I can't do anything, because I'm disabled. And it's like, well, no, I can, actually.
Right.
It's just I've been told by other people
Yes.
that I can't, and you have to sort of check yourself and go, hang on a minute. Like, you're fine to do that. Like, get up and do it.
Yes. And it's just, you get so many people treating you like you're a 2-year-old when
Yes.
you are, oh, let me get that for you. I don't want you to have to get up, or let me do this for you. And it does kind of feel nice sometimes, especially like when you've, been a part of the hustle culture, and then you get to relax and you're just like, everybody's coming, let me do this for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Please let me relax. Yeah, this is the life. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want it, because then you start to feel like you're a toddler again. And I don't want to feel like I'm a little baby. I'm an adult. I'm older than most people now.
I think that was the biggest adjustment we had at home. So I still live with my parents because they help out with caring for when I'm having a really bad day. And they won't mind me saying this, but I'd say that they were very protective of me until I went to university at 18. And then I came home and I was very much, it had gone up a level. I was treated as a grown up in the house now because I'd been to university and come back. And then long COVID got its teeth into me. And there was very quickly an adjustment back to Anita is the child in the house. And it took, I'd say, about a year of us working together to find that nice balance between, yes, I want your help, but no, I don't want you to treat me like I'm a child anymore. And finding that level of freedom, but also I may need you to assist me with certain things. That took a great deal of effort to balance. And that's not, a slight on my family. It's something that does happen when all of a sudden you have a life-changing condition that wasn't there before. It is hard to navigate at first.
Yes, it is.
And it's hard as a caretaker to know when it's right to go that extra bit and when to stop and what to do and how to do it.
Yeah,
definitely. And I've noticed with my parents, they find it very hard sometimes, and that's why communication is so important. It's I need you to do this, or please let me do it by myself. But if I don't communicate that with you, then you're left in this place of, I'm really not sure what I should be doing right now.
Yeah, you get into a place of limbo. And I mean, it's already hard to, even if you're able-bodied, undisabled, and you move in with your parents, you kind of revert back to the child. And anyway, at least I have found that, because when Mike and I had to move in with my parents, I felt like, I'm a teenager again, yay.
So you had to ask them before you did anything.
And you kind of go back to, can I do this? Is that okay? And then my parents would look at me like, how old are you now? kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, well, I've got kids now, so I got to be nice. But and so you kind of revert back to that sense of, I'm the child, they're the parent, they take care of everything. And you kind of, I think it's kind of a natural thing to happen when you move back in with your parents. And then when you are disabled on top of that, I think it adds another layer of, from the parents' aspect, this is my baby, they're hurting, they're sick, and
Absolutely.
I have to take care of them because that's my baby. And then at the same time, from the disabled aspect, you're just like, at first it's like nice to be, I'm the baby. But at the same time, you're just like, but I'm 30 or I'm 40 or I'm 50. What the hell is this?
Exactly. And I mean,
no, I don't need you to bathe me. Go away.
I mean, I'm 27 and it's like I'm trying to fit 27 years worth of life into the same bedroom I was living in when I was a baby.
Right.
And so it's very cluttered and there's a lot of stuff in here, but that's because by now I thought I would have my own house and I thought that I would be gone. And life just didn't play out like that. But a big part of my account, a big part of my social media is normalizing things that we maybe sometimes find a bit shameful. And that is something I wanted to bring up. You and your family, whether it be your husband, your wife, your partner, your parents, grandparents, you're going to struggle at first. And
Yes.
that doesn't reflect at all on your caregivers. That doesn't reflect at all on you. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough. And they're going to say things that will make you roll your eyes and, think, oh, I can't wait to move out. I can't believe that, I'm stuck in this situation. And they're going to get upset and frustrated because they don't know how to help you. And you're not cooperating because you're tired and fed up and they're tired and fed up. And it's normal. It's completely normal. You're not failing as a carer if you're going through a rough patch. You're not failing as a disabled or chronically ill person if they're not helping you the way that you want. It's life. It's just part of it.
Yeah. And it's so refreshing to hear that you have a good support system behind you. It's so common that we hear that does not happen. So it's good to hear that. And
I'm so lucky in that sense, honestly. My parents have been incredible, and so have all my friends. I've not lost any friends because I know that's a very common thing.
Great,
That is a very common thing when you become ill, your friends suddenly disappear. I've not lost any friends through I've not lost any friends through all of this. They've all been brilliant. Like I said, my parents have been brilliant. We have bumpy patches, but that would happen even if I wasn't disabled.
Right.
That's just like you said, living with your parents at the end of the day.
And something you mentioned earlier, I remember seeing on your Instagram just a couple days ago, you showed your room was really cluttered and that you had been cleaning it because you were going through a bad mental health couple days or week or whatever it was. And that really, I can really relate to that. Having
Thank
bad
you.
depression, motivation is a really hard thing to get when you're in that depression, and motivation to do
really tough.
anything is really hard to do. To get up and go to work or whatever you got to do, it's just, it sucks. So it was actually kind of nice to see that because
Thank you.
You can see that it's not just me.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you've said that, because I was so anxious about sharing that post, because that sort of the level of clutter in this room is something that I've basically never tried to show. The background, not that you'll be able to see it on the podcast, but the background I have right now is the same background I use for filming. It's one tiny corner of the room where there is nothing, so that I can use that for filming, and then the rest of the room is just everything I own. And it was really, really daunting, the thought of, because I was proud that I'd cleaned my room. I was so proud that I'd finally done it after these months of feeling so depressed and so down. But then it was that thought of, oh my God, I have to show people what it looked like before. And it did push me through that thought of, but there is going to be somebody out there, as you just said, Michael, there's going to be somebody that looks at that and goes, oh yeah, I get it. I relate to that. And so I'm really glad that I did post it, because I think there was that wave of relief of sort of almost reaching out to Instagram and sort of going, hey, I was really struggling, but look, I did a good thing.
Yeah.
And having all of the reception on that be positive was really great.
And even if it's cluttered, because that's just the way you live, that's nobody else's problem but yours.
Right.
That is so true. I'm a very cluttered person, I will say.
I'm cluttered.
Actually, I'm very cluttered.
I am a very cluttered person.
Our table in the family room's always got a bunch of stuff all over the top of it and on the bottom.
And
it's mostly because of her, but
it's because if I'm not cluttered, and I'm sure other people feel this way too, and it might be because, like, I recently was diagnosed with having neurodivergence, but I find if it's not cluttered, I can't find anything.
Yes, that is the stage that I'm in right now. I've cleaned my room, it looks great. I don't know where anything is.
Yes.
I can't find a single thing I own.
Exactly, and it's always been that way, even as a teenager and as a kid. If I have a strategic mess, and it may look like a horrible cluttered mess to certain other people, but to me it's like, this is how I have to be, because if it's clean, it almost kind of makes me have like great anxiety, because it's always like, oh no, I'm never going to find this again. What did I do with it? That whole thing of, I put it somewhere safe. But it's so safe.
Exactly what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
My room looks great, but I was knitting last night and I was looking for my stitch markers. I know exactly where they used to be in the pile of clutter. They were just at the side of my bed, and I remember them being there. I've looked through every drawer. I've looked into every storage place. I have no idea where they've gone. Absolutely no idea. I've clearly put them in that quote unquote safe place.
Yes.
And now they're gone forever.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, the safe place is so safe that I will never find it again. Even if I move and I have, dumped every drawer, gotten rid of every article of clothing, I will never find it again. And then when I never need it, oh, there it is.
And exactly the same.
But like, I can't have it too cluttered at the same time either, because then I feel a horrible anxiety too. So it's like this, it's got to be this fine line of clutter.
And only she knows what that is.
Yes. Yes.
That's exactly where I was before I cleaned my room. So my dad's brother, my uncle, he had quite a bad history of depression, and sadly he passed away a few years ago now. And when we went into his apartment, it was just stuff everywhere, empty drink bottles, possessions, everything, because he had very, very bad depression that was unmanaged. He wasn't on any medication, and it had just spiraled. And that for me, I think, is part of the motivation of, I can remember walking into his room and thinking, oh my goodness, this is, a whole new level of of depressed, because it was so obvious that that was the cause, but it was a brand new level for me. And so I sort of let my room get cluttered to a certain extent, and then I look around and I go, it's starting to look like his apartment. And that's the point where I have to pull myself in and go, okay, this is now a problem. Let's get this sorted. And then I will blitz it in 2 days, something that I've been putting off for like a year. I'll do it in 48 hours and then be like, okay, I'm done for the year now.
Yep.
So, if you don't mind me asking, did your depression come about because of the COVID, the long COVID, and the disability, or was that something that you've struggled with your whole life?
I've always had it to an extent. I'd say more anxiety than depression. I've had right from being a kid. I can remember being 7 years old and suddenly I think my dad was talking very loudly in a room, and I remember this feeling of like wanting the ground to swallow me up because it's, Dad, you're being too loud.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, Dad, you're so loud. Like people are looking at us. No one was looking at us, but at the time I had no word for it. But then as I became an adult, it was like, oh, it's anxiety. It got significantly worse once I was diagnosed with long COVID. I'd say, I wouldn't say it was manageable because it was clearly impacting my life, but it got much, much, much harder to live day to day once the COVID set in, because things that I used to be able to do, like go for a walk to clear my head or go out with my friends, that was no longer an option because my mobility had severely decreased. And it all came to a head maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. And I remember my mum just walking into my room and just saying to me like, oh, what do you want for dinner? And I just went into this sobbing mess of, I don't know, like, I don't know anything anymore. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to eat anything. And it's like 3 years worth of mental health just all came puthering out from one question. And I remember having a conversation with one of my friends because I told her I was feeling a bit down. And she sort of said, well, where do you see yourself in, say, September? And I couldn't tell her because I had no plans. There was nothing I wanted to do. It was just, don't really want to be here at this point,
Mm-hmm.
And that was the moment where I think seeing her reaction and seeing my parents' reaction, it was, I'm clearly not managing this on my own anymore. I now need to get some kind of help. So I'm now on antidepressants, which have done a very good job, I would say. I never would have started my social media account. I never would have been doing all of this if I wasn't on those. The life I was living before was very, very isolated.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you are struggling with something like that, I know it's such a stereotype to go, don't be ashamed of getting help, because in your head, you're always like, yeah, but I don't need it. Like, you might need it. I don't.
Yes.
That is not true. You do need it. Please go and get help.
It took a while before I went and got help because I kept thinking, that my depression and my anxiety were just, it's not really anxiety, it's not really depression because it's not how I saw it when Mike would have his depression episodes. So I assumed because it wasn't like his, then I can't possibly have it.
Mm-hmm. For me, I knew that I had sort of, again, that lingering depression and anxiety from when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I was handling my long COVID diagnosis fine. I had no depression. I was doing so well. I was the queen of long COVID. I had everything figured out. And then I had like 2 therapy sessions and suddenly I went, oh no, like I am not handling this at all.
Yes. That's kind of how it was when I had tried a few times before, but I've got this awesome therapist now. And talking to her was just like, well, shit. I thought I was much better than that. Damn.
It's when you say you'd say something as a joke and they start furiously typing and you're like, oh no.
Yep. And you're thinking, oh no, they're probably thinking I'm nuts. Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had that, and I think I tried quite a few different ways of coping with it. The big one was video gaming, because obviously it takes your mind somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking about yourself, and you're getting that sense of achievement of, oh, I've finished this level, I did something today. And, that's all well and good for a while, but I'd say it got to the point where it was a full-blown addiction. I would wake up early in the morning, I would play games all day, normally something like Skyrim or Oblivion, and I would play it all day. And then I'd go to bed at 3 a.m, and then I'd be up again at 7 a.m, and I'd just start all over again. And that would be my whole day. And I'm not ashamed of that, because at the end of the day, it kept me alive, it kept me going, it got me to where I need to be. But that is no longer a helpful method of looking after myself.
Video games would piss me off and make me more depressed when I couldn't finish that level, or I couldn't get past a certain spot just through the controller.
It sort of became a running joke of, you could tell how depressed I was depending on what video game I was playing. So Oblivion was like, I am at rock bottom right now. Like, nobody talk to me. It's the end times, guys. So like, I remember the game recently got remastered, and literally all of my friends reaching out to me and being like, look, we're concerned. Please talk to us still once this game comes out.
Yep. And I had that too. I was playing constantly on like my phone, and I was scrolling constantly, and I would be up late at night scrolling. And honestly, I didn't think at that time, I didn't really, like, I knew I was doing it, but I didn't think I had a problem.
Yes, that's exactly how I was.
I didn't know you stopped.
Shut up. I have, smartass. I am not up late at night, and I'm not on it all day, which is why sometimes I don't always get your texts. But I was really bad. Like, I can look back and say, holy crap, I was really bad at it. But at the time,
That's exactly how I am.
I didn't think it was bad at the time, because I was like, it's making me happy. It's taking my mind off of everything that's like angering me and making me depressed. And so it can't be that bad.
And the thing is, if that's what you've got to do to get through it, then that is what you've got to do. You know, like, I don't think anybody should feel ashamed. Like, if they're listening, I don't think it should be a case of, oh no, I do that, I shouldn't. If it's getting you through the day and that's what you need right now, do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Reassess it later.
Sometimes the alternative is, there is no alternative.
Exactly.
And like, at that time, I was just so kind of like sad and angry at the same time. Everything just seemed wrong. And I had, done what I had thought was the end all and be all goal of my life, which was to, have a house and have my doctorate. And they came, and it's just like, now what? What do I do now? There was nothing to like fight towards, or, in my head. So I just kind of kept going down and further down and further down. And then Mike's like, well, you need to talk to somebody. And I kept thinking, no, I don't need to talk to somebody. I'm fine.
I was getting annoyed.
Yes, you were.
That's an understatement.
And when I finally got a chance to talk to my therapist now, it just opened up so many different things. And I'm saying all of this because if you're in that boat where you feel like you've reached everything that you thought you were supposed to have, and you're just like, now what? Or you find yourself addicted to playing games on your phone, on Xbox, whatever, and nothing seems to be going right in your head, find help.
Absolutely. Because it's so hard to make that first step, though. It really is, because, like I said, you always think the rules don't apply to you.
Right.
You always think, if it was your best friend and they were in that situation, the first thing you would do is say, get therapy, get medication, speak to a doctor, go down that route.
Right.
But when it's yourself, you're fine. The rules don't apply because it's yourself.
Not that bad.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't see it. You don't see it from the same way that everybody else can. Even though deep down you know something's off, but you can't always put your finger on it, but you can see it in everybody else.
Exactly. And it can be very hard to sort of put yourself under the microscope like that and go, actually, there's some things I really need to work on right now.
Yeah.
And it's also be kind to yourself in that sense, because it's such a big learning curve. There's going to be things that, I thought, said, or did 3 years ago that I'd look back now and go, oh my God, I can't believe that, I did that. But we're all learning all the time. We're all adapting all the time.
Yeah. And that's the key right there, is that we're constantly learning and adapting. And for me, I thought, well, I'm an adult. There is no more learning to do. There is no more adapting necessarily to do. And so it kind of made me shut down, thinking, well, I've done everything I wanted to. So there's nothing
Yeah.
else to do. And that thought process was the depression talking. But I didn't recognize it. I didn't think it was. I just assumed, well, yeah, I've done everything, so there's nothing else to do. And I need to I don't want to die, but I don't want to live.
I was in I'd say a similar situation, except I was one step behind you. So I did my master's degree and I was just applying for my PhD when long COVID hit. And for me, it was that thought of, this thing is now out of reach. This is the one thing that I was supposed to do in my life. This was going to be the big thing. I can't do it right now. And even now, I still can't do it because the brain fog that I got from long COVID is immense. My brain is most definitely not what it was when I did my master's degree. I would not be able to handle one right now. And in my whole life, my value was sort of tied to academia. I was always the gifted child.
Yep.
I was always the smart child. And, all the way through school, I basically didn't have to study, didn't have to revise. I just got things. And that was my whole value in my mind, was I'm the smart one.
Yep.
That's what I do. And then all of a sudden, brain fog kicked in, PhD went out of reach. I'm not the quote unquote smart one anymore. And it was this whole identity crisis of, well, now what am I? Because I was supposed to be the smart one. And now I can't really remember the word for soup anymore. Like, I don't know what I am right now. And it's taken a long time for me to realize that there's a lot more to life than just, academic qualifications. And I'm starting this journey of helping people, and not just through my social media, but I volunteer now as well. I make cards for a charity called Cards for Bravery. They distribute cards to children in hospital and stuff like that. And I think that's actually so much more valuable, is the fact that you can help people. But it took 3 years for me to go through that crisis and sort of realize my value doesn't have to be that I'm clever. It can be so many other things that are just as, if not more important.
And that's it. Sorry, go ahead.
My therapist taught me, when you have those depression thoughts, she named my depression. So basically she was saying, when you have those kind of thoughts, those unreasonable ones, those crazy ones, just tell so-and-so to stop, whatever the name is, or tell them to stop, kind of like view it as a separate entity. And that does help. Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah.
No, it was Frank.
Oh, okay.
Mine doesn't have a name, but I just visualize it, and it's a tiny little jester just having a little dance in my head. I'm like, why would I listen to you?
Exactly. And it was exactly the same for me, because I was the smart one, I was the strong one, and so I was supposed to be the smart and strong one. It was just, I easily got A's, so I figured, well, that's what I'm good for. I can get A's. I can, do all of this. And then I have to admit, after I got my doctorate, I had strong brain fog, because I think what a lot of people don't ever talk about either is that when you strive for that level and you have to bust your ass for it.
Yeah.
And when you're not used to busting your ass for things, your brain just is like, what? What is this shit? What the fuck are you doing to me? And and when I was done, it was just like it felt like, have you ever seen Megamind, where he has this huge head? It kind of felt like my head was that, but not huge, just crammed with too much stuff. And I couldn't think straight, and I couldn't talk straight. And I would have all of these things. It's like I couldn't remember simple words anymore, because it was, these big, huge words that I had to remember. And it can be kind of disabling in that. And it was scary, because I thought, oh my God, am I having strokes or something like that? But the thing is that striving for that, if you want to, there's always a way to do it. But make sure that you're taking, care of your mental health throughout it, because it is an isolating thing. Even if you're with a group of other students, it's still isolating, and it's still, so much to put into it that don't lose yourself.
Absolutely. And I think there's also how you were talking about your siblings. There's that level there as well of where you fit in the family. So in my family, I was the first person to go to university, and I was going to be the first one to do a doctorate. And now my lovely cousin has sort of overstepped me there. And she's doing an incredible job. She's studying all kinds of fancy science things that I am not able to understand whatsoever, but she's doing such an incredible job. But there's also that element of, oh, I was going to be the first.
Yep.
Right.
And you know, your position has now been filled. Somebody else is doing that now. And it's that adjustment of basically learning to be laid back. Because like you said, I was very much sort of headstrong, very academic, very productive. And it's now that step back into, well, I can't do that right now. So I need to become more relaxed. I need to become more okay with being chilled out. And that in itself is difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially it's very hard, especially when you're academically gifted, to kind of step back and take a breather and think about things, because it's always just, well, oh, here's another school year, let's go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And, you know, oh, I don't know about you, but I was a dork over the summer. I was a dork all year anyway. But I would be at home reading books. I would go out with my friends some, but I was mostly at home reading books and more books. And I loved doing that. I didn't care to, you know, skip school. I was just like, what is this? How can you possibly skip school when we get to learn? And, you know, I was that type of kid, mainly also because my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So there was no way in hell I was going to get away with skipping school anyway. So there is that too. And it's just changing how you start off school. You know, as a little kid, you're like, I'm going to be the first to do this, or I'm going to be the one to go further than my parents did, or I'm going to be the first to cure cancer. You have all of these ideals. And then when life gets in the way, and in our cases, you know, you become disabled, it changes fundamentally in your head who you think you are.
Yeah, it does.
And sometimes it's frightening because you're just like, but I had these goals and I'm supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z right now, but I can't. Yeah. And that's okay to mourn what you couldn't do, what you can't do, but also be aware that there's other things that you can do that you may not have thought were possible because you were so one-track minded on becoming like the first medical scientist doctor that had a PhD, MD, and a law degree type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I had a moment a few months ago now, which I posted online, which was in my head when I was at university. I remember there was this one specific car that I wanted, and that was going to be my I have made it car. It wasn't anything fancy. It was a Toyota Yaris. It really wasn't anything to like scream about. But I just remember seeing it and thinking, like, when I live in a big city and I'm doing my big media job, this is going to be the car that I drive around, and it's going to be in this color, and it's going to look amazing, and I'm going to be driving all around the city at night and, you know, be this really successful woman. And I saw that same car a few months ago in a dealership, and my parents were like, well, it's there, you know, this is the dream car, it's right there. And I couldn't get it because the thought of seeing it sat on my driveway every day and not doing the job that I had for it in my head, I was like, it's a disservice to what I wanted it to be. I would rather just not have it than it live there, and I feel so depressed every time I look out the window and see, you know, the big car. And I ended up crying in this little car dealership, and I had to leave because to an outsider, it must have looked hilarious. I was just stood gazing wistfully at this Toyota Yaris before breaking down into tears and then leaving the dealership. So to an outsider, I'm sure that was hilarious. But, you know, the thought process there was really difficult because the car was almost symbolic. That was the life that I was going to live. And it was stood in front of me, and it wasn't my life anymore.
Yeah.
So when, if you don't mind me asking, when did you get the COVID? When did all of this change? Were you in your 20s?
Yeah, so I was 23. I have to think then. It was January 2022. I was 23, and I'd graduated from my master's degree in the October of the previous year. And it was then so October 2021, I graduated my master's degree. January 2022, I got COVID. And so it was a very short gap of like applying for PhDs. And basically I wasn't really mooching around. It was like, this is going to be the next step. Like, you know, we're moving on to the next big thing. The next big thing was my legs didn't work anymore, which was not what I wanted.
Yes.
But the thing is, you know, if somebody said to me, you have a time machine, you can go back, you can change it, would you? I think my answer genuinely would be no, because like you said, I've met so many people. I have changed in such a positive way. And yes, of course it has its downsides. Nobody wakes up in the morning and wishes they had long COVID, but there are so many positives that I wouldn't want to take away.
Yeah.
Right.
I 100% agree. There are times when I would think to myself, oh, you know, woe is me, and how awful it is that I have this chronic pain that just no matter what I do, I get tremors, or, you know, just it's annoying.
Yeah.
And of course, it's debilitating. And my legs no longer work really well. And at the same time, I think back and it's like they never really worked well in the first place because I have horrible proprioception and I was always in pain anyway. So, you know, this isn't really that different. And I feel like this is going to sound strange, but I feel like my life is better having the wheelchair and the crutches to help me with my mobility than before I had those.
Yeah.
Because it's just when I think about it, it's just like, but I really wasn't happy and I was always in pain anyway. So this is actually kind of better because I'm able to do more things, I feel like. And I want to do more things because I'm not thinking of, oh crap, my legs are going to be in so much pain afterwards. And I feel freer.
I have to say, and this is, again, a strange thing to say, but I'm sure you'll understand where I'm coming from, is I'm kind of really looking forward to the day that I do end up in a wheelchair, because at the moment I'm still using a walking stick and, you know, I think I am mentally there. I think the people around me are not. And so it's sort of holding off for a little while until we make that call. But on the rare occasions I have used one, like you said, the fact that I don't have to worry, the fact that I don't have to think, oh, well, what are my legs going to be like tomorrow? What am I going to have the energy for? You know, and I can just go and not have to deal with the leg pain. And like, for example, I went with my friends to Disneyland in California, and I normally do Disneyland Paris because obviously living in the UK. Right. And every trip there, don't get me wrong, I love it, but the main memory I take away is having really bad legs, really sore feet, feeling really exhausted, and then using the wheelchair at the one in California. It was like the best Disney trip I'd ever had because I didn't have all of that pain and the exhaustion that came along with it because I'd used the wheelchair. And so in a weird sort of way, I'm looking forward to the day when I have those sort of mobility aids, when I have a wheelchair, when I have a mobility scooter, something like that. I'm quite excited for it.
I was excited too because like the only other time when I was younger that I felt really good was when I was riding horses, and it's because I wasn't walking.
Yeah.
They were doing it for me. And I was so addicted to it because not only does it clear your mind because you can't really focus on anything else, but I wasn't really in pain. Mm-hmm. I didn't.
So what I'm hearing is I should get a horse.
Yes, yes, yes. Definitely have a horse and a wheelchair.
So, because I don't really understand it that well, how long does it take, or did it take, from the diagnosis of COVID, testing positive for COVID, for it to go to, like, your legs hurting, needing mobility aids, and really disabling?
So, one thing that I will say, and I can't speak for all of us, but when you say, well, I don't fully understand it, neither do we, if I'm completely honest with you. And I can't speak for everyone with long COVID, but I certainly don't understand it. I can only really tell you my experience, which was I had cold and flu symptoms for about 3 days. And I'm asthmatic, so my first worry was that my lungs were going to, feel really bad. And I almost felt a bit cocky because I was like, oh, my lungs are fine. Like, I just have a cold. I get to isolate. Like, this is great. And then I went to bed on the third evening, I think it was. And I felt a bit tired, but no more tired than you would if you had a cold. It was nothing to worry about. And the morning of the fourth morning, I woke up and my legs just didn't move. They'd just gone overnight. And I don't know what it was that specifically triggered that moment, but the way that I describe it is like really, really heavy weights. So like they would move, but it was so difficult to the point where like it was as if you had weights around your ankles, around your knees, around your hips, and every movement that you tried to make, you're lifting these weights along with your legs. And so could I walk downstairs if I absolutely had to? Yes, I could, but it was so much harder than it was 12 hours beforehand. And it's like a switch just flipped and everything just changed then and there. And then it took about a year to get the actual long COVID diagnosis, but that was more down to me than it was then to my doctors, because you definitely go through that first stage of denial of this is going to go away and everything will be fine. And I don't need a medical professional because nothing's happening. It's totally fine. So it took about a year for me to actually go to the doctors and be like, hey, this happened, by the way. I think we should talk about it.
Did it affect your asthma in the long term?
A little bit, nowhere near as much as I was expecting.
Okay.
So I do get breathless now far more easily than I did. But to tell you the truth, I can't tell you how much of that is down to the asthma and how much is down to just the fact I'm obviously a lot more unfit than I was because I'm not out and about as much as I was before.
Right.
I'm waiting for a referral to a respiratory clinic because apparently I have breathing pattern disorder as well, which is where you tend to breathe just through your mouth and you sort of breathe quite heavily, which also makes you more tired. Apparently, a lot of people got that after COVID because of wearing masks. People were changing how they were breathing and then never changed back again once they stopped wearing masks regularly. So I'm also waiting to sort of go, I think it's sort of a bit like physiotherapy, but for your breathing, where you have to learn how to breathe again, which is going to be very interesting.
I find I have asthma as well, and I have troubles wearing masks a lot of times, so I definitely have to mouth breathe. And like sometimes I sound like a heavy breather from like the old days where people would call you and go kind of thing. And
Yeah, I'm the same.
but I can't imagine having worn a mask so long that you forget how to breathe out of your nose.
Yeah, it's again, I'd never even noticed it. And I had a telephone referral with my long COVID doctor. And I was just sitting on my bed talking to her and she just went, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, well," she's like, "You sound so out of breath." And I was like, I'm fine. And she sort of picked up on the breathing and was like, "Okay, I think we need to refer you to, I think you have breathing pattern disorder because the way that you're breathing is so heavy for someone who's not done anything. I think that you, like you said, essentially mouth breathing rather than actually going through the proper cycle."
And how scared was it? Scary was it just waking up on the fourth day and your legs are like loaded down with 2,000-pound weights is how I imagine it would be, because I have similar feelings with my legs where all of a sudden, like one moment it feels like they're feathers and then the next moment it's like I've got 2,000-pound weights going from basically hips down myself.
Yeah. If I'm honest, at the time, I wasn't as scared as I think I should have been looking back on it. I think in my head, it was like, oh, this is just one of those COVID weird things that happens. Like, don't worry, I'm sure it'll go back to normal. So I wasn't that scared. I'd say I'm trying to think how long it probably actually took for me to sort of have that oh shit moment of like, this is not going away. This is a problem. I feel like I was in full denial for about 6 months of like, any day now, guys. Any day now, it's gonna go.
Yep.
Yeah, and then obviously by the end of that 6 months and that realization of, oh, it isn't going, I'd already learned to adapt to it. So it was terrifying, don't get me wrong, but I think the thing that got me through it and made me not collapse entirely mentally was the thought of, yes, it's scary right now, but I'm sure tomorrow I'll wake up and it will be fine. And I did that for 6 months, and that was sort of how I got through it, was complete denial.
Yes, and deniability is such a wonderful thing at times, because I think we all kind of, undisabled and disabled alike, have a tendency to, oh, this will go away tomorrow. I'll be fine. It'll be perfect. And, oh, it'll go away tomorrow. And then, the next week, it'll go away tomorrow, damn it. And you kind of, I think that is definitely a huge coping mechanism that we have, because acknowledging it right then and there sometimes, I think, is scarier than the actual my legs
Yeah.
don't work or my back is spasming or whatever.
It's all a part of the grieving process. Denial is the first
Absolutely.
stage.
The way that I've described my diagnosis is like the grieving process. You go through the 7 stages of grief, and I'm still not fully at acceptance even now. And I do think I was clearly more affected by it than I thought I was at the time, because you'll notice I was sort of giving vague timeframes. I don't remember a lot of it, which clearly is the brain's way of saying this was incredibly traumatic and we don't want to think about it.
Right.
And I have diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder from everything that went on. If I say that I go through a good patch and I don't use my walking stick for 3-4 months because I'm having a really good time, the second I next have to pick it up again, I can feel in my body, like my whole body tenses, and I start to think that there's this panicking in me, even though I don't realize I'm doing it. So while I'd love to say it didn't really affect me at all, that's what it feels like to me. But clearly in my body, there is a very, very strong reaction to it. And it very clearly did affect me a lot more than I think it did. And I'm sure if we sort of reconvene maybe this time in like 2 years, you'll ask this question again and I'll go, well, let's unpack everything.
And I mean, it does kind of do that, because there are certain things, like in my journey with all of my stuff, I don't remember. And then if you ask a very specific question, I'll be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then certain other things I don't remember about it. Like, I remember playing soccer. I remember finding the one hole in my parents' yard and deciding, hey, I think I'll join it. And I twisted my ankle, and I remember hearing this loud ass pop. And it immediately swelled up. And then I remember Mike taking me up, but I don't really, it's vague memory of going to the hospital after that. I know I went, and
Later that evening, I remember it.
of course you do. But it's like a vague memory of doing that. And almost as if I wasn't there, even though I was. Yeah. I mean, obviously I was. I had to have been. But I vaguely recall it. And I vaguely recall going to the ortho, I believe it was, doctor, and getting the dreaded boot.
But even like her in the beginning, we thought it was just a sprained ankle and it was going to go away. Even when it had been longer than it should have been, we still continued to think that for a long time.
Yeah, we did.
Do you also find that you have a very strong reaction to things you weren't expecting to? Like, if somebody asks a specific question, in my mind, I'll think, that's a fine question. And then they'll ask and I will just immediately start to cry. And it's like, I don't know why I'm crying, but something has clearly hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yes.
And it just turns you into a mess.
And the funny thing is, I had a dream last night that Dory asked me some really stupid, inconsequential question, and I broke down crying in my dream. No. I don't know why. It was very strange. Now that you're talking about it, it's like, wow, that's weird.
That is weird.
It is.
I've had that before. I think it was the first podcast I ever did. And as stupid as this sounds, I was not prepared to talk about long COVID, which obviously I should have been. The podcast was about my diagnosis, but I think because when obviously you're making content yourself, you're prepared to say what you're willing to say.
Yes.
But when somebody else is asking you a question, it's that moment of, oh, I haven't considered that before, but now I'm about to talk about it. And it was the first podcast that I ever did. And I hung up the phone being like, this is fine. And then the second I'd hung up, the tears just started. And I think it was 2 hours of just sobbing because I'd had to think about things that I hadn't thought about in about 3.5 years. But I'm really glad I did it because it's made me now process that. And I'm now far more comfortable talking about it than I was this time last month.
And do you ever find that you'll just break down even at like happy moments? Like, for instance, one of the people that we talked to said that they were going to give us a picture, a painting that they made. And I just broke down in tears because I just thought the gesture was so incredible. And I used to pride myself, and this isn't a great thing, but I used to pride myself in the fact that I was not a crier because I thought, well, girls always cry at certain things, and I'm not going to be that type of girl. I'm not a girly girl. I shouldn't cry. And for one, crying is therapeutic. It is good to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Male, female, they, whoever you are, you should cry sometimes. But I, grew up thinking, well, that's what girls do. And that's a bad thing because girls aren't, gross type of thing. And so I used to pride myself in never crying. And then it's like, now I can't not cry. If somebody says hi, I'm like, that's so sweet, hi, kind of thing. But I can't hold it back anymore.
I find I'm very much all or nothing. So when my grandma passed away, I was so close to her. I didn't cry at the funeral, didn't cry much after. I was like, I'm all good. And then I'll watch something on the TV that has like a slightly sad moment on it, and it will just send me into a crying spiral for like the whole day. I do find that I sort of pride myself on things that I would never expect to. And I'm sure if past Anita 10 years ago could see some of the things I cry at now, because obviously being disabled, things are a much bigger achievement than they were 10 years ago, she would think I was so uncool. Like, she would be like, I cannot believe you're crying about this.
Yes.
Get a grip.
Yes. And I mean, like, I remember there's this really, really sad movie called Terms of Endearment. And the main character dies at the end of the movie. And I remember seeing it as a little girl and being like, oh, that sucks. And then, going to play with my toys. And that's how it was for me throughout most of my life, is just, oh, that sucks. And I would just go on and do whatever I needed to. But now it's like somebody says they stubbed their toe and I'm just like, oh, that's so sad. Your poor toe. And it's frustrating, but I think I had pent up so much emotion growing up that now it's just like anything will set it off. And
I also think that you pent up that emotion from what has happened to you, from your disability, and you're letting out the emotion that you didn't let out at the time, is how I seem to see it. Like, when we were saying I tidied my room, you're right, and I turned around after doing it and looked at my now fairly clean room and just started to cry, because I was like, this is a huge thing for me. Because it's sort of, it signified an end to that very sort of depressive period in my life where I couldn't get up and clean it, and B, I had worked so hard in 2 days doing a lot more physical activity than I think I've probably done at all in the past 3.5 years, and it just really got to me. But it's like, I wasn't crying about the room, I was crying about the fact that I'd done something even though the disability was trying to stop me. And it was definitely more about the disability than it was the bedroom.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I cried because I cooked the other day. I mean, everybody cooks. Well,
I have to make you cry now. We're out of time.
Well, damn. I'm having so much fun.
We gotta start wrapping it up.
But yeah, I mean, I cooked some noodles the other day, and I kind of started tearing up, thinking, "Oh, this is great! I made something." But I think that we need to stop holding everything back as well, because I think that also kind of leads to the PTSD of our disabilities.
Absolutely.
When we keep saying that deniability aspect, I think denies us so much of processing what's going on with us. And
you need to revisit it.
Yeah, you have, and it's a process. It's not linear. Sometimes you're going to go back to the anger or back to the grieving, and we have to understand that it's not just you first do step 1 and then step 2 and then you never revisit those. You're going to go back and forth.
Yeah,
and
you are.
That's important to also recognize, and that's okay.
And it's going to hurt.
Yes.
And unfortunately, once you've got through that very hurtful, harmful part, you are going to feel better at the end of it.
Right.
Yeah, and it does get easier.
All right.
You can say bye now.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Do you want to let
Yes.
Do you want to let people know how to find your advocacy online?
Yeah, so my main account is Instagram, and that's Chronically Anita. And I do also have TikTok and Facebook, but I post a little bit less on those. So definitely find me on Instagram.
Okay. And I'll put that in the show notes so everyone can see it. And thank you again.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's been wonderful.
I have had
Thank you so much. I've had a great time.
I'm glad. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. please leave a rating for us wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Othering Podcast is brought to you by Loudcore Productions in conjunction with your support. Your host, Mike and Dory Morris, graphics by Joshua Morris, and join us next week on the Othering Podcast.